We want to acknowledge that the city of Hamilton is situated upon traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Hello and welcome to the Cable 14 2025 federal election debates presented in partnership with our good friends at the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune, and for the next hour and a half I will be your moderator as we feature candidates from the riding of Hamilton West, Ancaster, and Dundas. Joining us live in studio, we have representing the Liberal Party, John Paul Danko. Representing the New Democratic Party, Roberto Henriquez. And finally, Georgia Beauchemin, representing the Green Party. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. And for all of you watching from home, thank you for joining us tonight on your television or online. Eric Alexander from the Conservative Party was invited to participate, but did not respond to any of our multiple emails, phone calls, or requests we made directly to Erica's social media sites. Also running in Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas are Jim Enos of the Christian Heritage Party and Ava Sharavi representing the People's Party. Both candidates were offered an opportunity to make a recorded statement right here at Cable 14 to be included as part of tonight's live broadcast. The format tonight includes 2 minutes for each candidate right here in studio to make an opening statement. Then we'll be inviting 3 members of our local media to pose questions to our candidates. Please, to the media, keep each of your responses to no more than a minute. As well, we'll also be putting forward questions that have been submitted by you, the viewers, but more on that in a moment. Then we'll have a second round of questions from our media panel. We will close tonight's program with an open floor debate where each candidate here in studio will be able to bring up a topic of their choice. Finally, we will finish off with a 1-minute closing statement from each of our candidates joining us here in studio. And for you viewers at home, or if you're watching live online, please make sure to tweet us on X at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com with any questions you would like us to ask our candidates right here in studio, and we will do our best to get to them. Very important, please remember to include your first name and, of course, what neighborhood you live in the Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas area. And that completes all of our housekeeping. Hamilton, you ready? Let's get started with the 2-minute opening statements. Representing the Liberal Party, we'll be starting with John Paul Danko. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. I'm John Paul Danko, your Liberal candidate for Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. I'm a structural engineer with 20 years experience working in construction, building roads and bridges and buildings. I've been proud to serve the residents of Hamilton as an elected city councillor since 2018. And today, I'm asking for your vote to serve the residents of Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas at the federal level. We face significant challenges in our economy due to a United States government that wants to fundamentally change how America does business around the world. Representatives of the Trump administration, including the president himself, have challenged our national sovereignty and our way of life as Canadians. Tariffs and threats of tariffs have caused severe economic uncertainty for Canadians, and we're also living through an affordability crisis that has put the fundamental needs such as housing and food as a severe challenge for Canadians and their families. Residents are tired of politicians and political parties that only want to divide. In times like these, we need positive leadership And Mark Carney is the strong, capable leader that we need. It's been so encouraging. Speaking to thousands of residents throughout this riding, I know that you share these concerns. We are united as Canadians to meet these challenges together. This is a different election. The stakes are higher than ever. So many homes are now proudly flying the Canadian flag, a public symbol of our proud Canadian values, a symbol of unity and commitment that we face these challenges together. We've all bought into elbows up. I'm running to serve as your MP to help Mark Carney form a new Liberal government, and on Election Day, I ask for your support to keep Canada strong.
Candidate Danko, thank you very much for that. We will now be moving on to our second candidate representing the New Democratic Party, Roberto Enriquez. The floor is yours.
First, thank you to Cable 14 for hosting this debate. Thank you to the other candidates, the ones who showed up, at least for this one. My name is Roberto Enriquez. I am a human rights and labor lawyer practicing here in Hamilton. And this is an election for the ages. Unfortunately, it has become an election about a single issue, that being Trump. Since the election of Trump, our reality has been flipped on its head. Premised on the understanding that America would always be there for us, we built an economy around a trade relationship that we envisioned would always be there. Not anymore. In the face of this seismic change, the media and those with influence, and I don't say all media, but there are those out there who are telling us that we must vote Liberal to preserve our identities and our country. And so where are we? Well, let's be honest. We are looking at what is likely going to be a Liberal government. But that's not the whole picture. You, the viewer, who are watching, you are watching in Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas, and you are not voting for Prime Minister. You are not voting for Carney. You are likely getting that. But you are voting for the candidate in your riding. The other ridings, the other 343 ridings, will likely grant you a Liberal government. But you are not rural Alberta. You are not Outremont. You are in Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. You are in a riding that believes in progressive values. You are in a riding that believes in preserving the environment, not destroying it for the sake of enriching developers. You believe in looking after each other and in community engagement. You believe in people like Sandy Shaw, and you believe in people like the NDP. You should be represented by a politician who cares enough to show up for debates, who upholds the highest standards, and as a human rights and labor lawyer, I believe I can uphold these values, and I look forward to convincing you of that.
Candidate Enriquez, thank you very much for that. We will now continue on representing the Green Party, Georgia Beauchemin.
Hello. Thank you for tuning in. I proudly lived on the West Mountain for 13 years. I am currently finishing my BA in Disability Studies and Political Science at TMU. I've seen public policy fail too many people. I saw it in the classroom where I worked as an EA after getting my diploma at Mohawk. And I saw it in long-term care during COVID-19 when I was briefly employed as a PSW. I see it when my father brings home fewer groceries for more money, while grocery giants are making larger profits than ever. And don't get me started on the lack of affordable housing. I've come up against two questions since launching my campaign. Why should I vote for someone with a disability? And why should I vote Green? These both have the same answer, because we need a voice. Whether you're a disabled person, unemployed or underemployed, unhoused, someone caring for a parent while trying to feed your own children, you're a senior, worried about how long your pension's going to last, or worried about what kind of world you're leaving to your grandchildren, you need a voice. If this describes your living situation, a vote for Liberal or Conservative is not the voice for you. Don't deny yourself your voice. A vote for the Green Party is a vote for your voice.
Georgia Beauchemin, thank you very much. And to all of our candidates joining us here in studio, thank you very much for all those opening statements. It's now time to bring in our local media representatives. Joining us here tonight, we have from the Hamilton Spectator, Fallon Hewitt, from CHCH News, Kelly Botello, and from CBC Hamilton, Sarah Piesker. Each media representative will choose a candidate to answer their question, and once the question has been answered, we will then open up the topic to the other two candidates to respond. We do ask you to keep your responses, candidates here in studio, to no more than a minute. Our first question will be coming from the Hamilton Spectator's very own Fallon Hewitt. The floor is yours, Fallon.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the candidates for showing up tonight and taking our questions. My question is for the NDP candidate. So at the start of the month, the Liberals ended one of their signature climate policies, the consumer carbon tax. Canadians are wondering what will replace it. Which party do you think has the worst climate policy going into the election, and how would you improve it?
Thank you. It's a bit of a loaded question. I think over the last 10 years, we've seen that Canada has failed to meet its targets and failed to live up to the trends that would put us on target. So for that amount of time, 10 years, the Liberal government has constantly made promises about how to improve our standing, both with respect to the Paris Climate Accord numbers as well as the COP agreement numbers, but we're not meeting those targets. And what's worse, what we've now done is we've just blatantly eliminated all steps of or all elements of the carbon tax. So what the NDP is now saying is, in this time of turbulence, we are seeing an opportunity for a seismic shift. And with that shift, we are in a position where we can reorient our economy. We know we have to move away from the United States. We can start using Canadian materials, which are now being tariffed at a high rate, to build up our own capital, our own infrastructure, including with respect to energy infrastructure. And so move
Roberto,
towards a green economy.
thank you very much. That was your 1 minute opening. We will let you finish, and then it will be open for further discussion amongst other candidates, please.
Thank
JP?
you, Mike. There's no question on who has the worst climate policy, and that would obviously be the Conservative Party, who don't have a climate policy, and half of their caucus denies that climate change exists in the first place. The Liberal government immediately got rid of the consumer carbon tax because it was divisive and not meeting the policy goals that were set. But in Hamilton in particular, there are three main sources of carbon and industrial emissions: transportation, buildings, and industrial. On the industrial side, the Liberal government is investing $400 million in ArcelorMittal Dofasco to change over coal steel production to electric arc furnaces, which will reduce emissions by 60%, and not only reduce carbon emissions, but reduce cancer-causing pollutants in the atmosphere. We're redeveloping the National Building Code for much higher efficiency standards. We're leaning into mass timber construction, which will drastically lower embodied carbon in new construction. And on the transportation side, the Liberal government is investing in Hamilton hundreds of millions of dollars in the HSR transit system and $1.7 billion in LRT to get more cars off the road, to get people onto public transportation.
Candidate Danko, thank you for that. We are open to open discussion now. Please feel free to jump in. I understand, Georgia, you like to get involved?
So climate is the reason for the Green Party existing, pretty much. So we must halt new fossil fuel infrastructure projects and end oil subsidies to oil and gas companies. we should invest heavily in renewable energy technology and development, hydro, wind, solar, geothermal, and battery capacity. We must also reinstitute a carbon tariff to protect Canadian industries from competition from cheaper, high-polluting countries. We commit to transitioning to 100% clean energy by 2035.
Thank you very much. We are in full open discussion mode. Please feel free to jump in whenever you like.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to have this discussion because climate change, with everything else that's going on in our environment, has fallen off the radar in terms of election issues, but that doesn't make it any less pressing of an issue. As Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, is a climate economist, he's talked about the need to transition to advanced manufacturing and renewable technologies, as Green candidate mentioned. And in Hamilton, we are doing some leading edge investment from the federal government into leading edge research and development. An example is at the McMaster Auto Research Center, where they're developing the next generation of rechargeable batteries for the automobile industry. Batteries that don't use lithium, they run on zinc technology, which removes all of that rare earth metal issues. And that is investment that is creating jobs and building our economy right here in Hamilton.
Anyone else? Yes, Roberto.
So, as I said before, the Liberal government has had years to put a plan together, and what we've seen commitments to build trees. To plant trees. We've seen commitments to focus on carbon sequestration. Like, these are tools and vehicles that are not useful for reducing our carbon emissions. We need action. We needed action 10 years ago. And as with all Liberal promises, you start to hear about these things as we come to an election. You start to hear about all of the wonderful things that will happen. But historically, what have we seen? The Liberals have let us down on many different items, including housing. But in this case, as I said, with the environment, we have seen a stalled plan of action, which has gotten us nowhere. And we are the worst G7 nation in respect of our carbon emissions. So I think, to be fair, they've had their opportunity. And I think what you need a strong group of candidates from the other parties, and I'm saying the NDP, to push the Liberals to actually implement change, to actually implement actions that will get us the types of results that we need in order to meet the 1.5 degree threshold.
Further responses? Thank you.
This is actually a great example of why we need to elect a Liberal MP for Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas, because we need an MP that will advocate for those investments in Hamilton. And just an example of some of the investments that we've got here from our previous MP, Philomena Tassi. The Liberal government has invested, as I said, hundreds of millions of dollars in transit in Hamilton. That is redeveloping the entire transit system for the city of Hamilton. $1.7 for LRT, which is the backbone of that transit system. And that is not only a transit for modal shift, but it's developing growth that is responsible within the existing urban boundary. And that's what a Liberal government will deliver for Hamilton.
Candidate Danko, thank you.
So I just want to bring up the point that the Liberals want to build a pipeline. That's not renewable energy, and they need to answer for that.
Thank you very much for that response. We do have to move on. Time is telling us to continue to move on with our next media panel. Before we do that, folks, please remember, to our viewers at home, if you have any questions for our candidates here in studio, make sure you send us an email to election@cable14.com. Now, from CHCH, to ask a particular candidate a question, it's Kelly Botello. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My question is for the Green Party candidate. Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas is home to arguably the most unaffordable homes in our city. How would you fight in Ottawa to make renting or buying a home cheaper?
Sorry, I'm trying to get through pages here.
Take your time, George. It's okay.
Okay, so how we would tackle the issue of affordable housing is we would institute a national emergency on housing. We plan to launch the biggest public housing construction program in 50 years. We commit to tripling affordable housing by building 1.2 million new homes and create covenants to ensure housing built with public money stays affordable forever. We would also permanently ban foreign ownership of residential real estate and close loopholes where criminals use real estate to hide their dirty money.
Candidate Beauchemin, thank you very much. This will now be open. I saw Roberto's hand up first. Candidate Enriquez, your response?
So today, 95% of homes or available available properties are market homes, which is to say that they are based on market rates. That means 5% is government housing, non-for-profit, co-ops. And so how did we get there? We got there because over the course of time, the Liberals failed to invest in the building of affordable homes in the way of public housing. So one of the things that the NDP is speaking about is creating a plan that will see the building of 3 million homes over the next 4 to 5 years. And so how is that different? Well, it's different because by keeping homes public, we're not putting additional homes into the market, which will continue to elevate in price. Keeping homes public will allow individuals to access those homes. Keeping homes public allows your neighbors, your family to afford homes, not in the way that the Liberals have proposed to do it by building market homes, but by keeping homes public. And I think that is an important element of our plan, and I think that is something that will get people housed.
Thank you, Candidate Enriquez. Candidate Danko?
Thank you. The Liberal government has the only housing plan that will actually work to reduce the cost of housing for Canadian families. The average cost of a single-family home in Hamilton is over $800,000. The average cost of a one-bedroom apartment to rent is over $2,000 a month. That is not affordable by anybody's standards. The Liberal plan will build 500,000 new homes per year across Canada, double the rate of current construction. We're going to invest $25 billion in financing to support construction of prefabricated homes, which is developing an entire new economy and business model at scale. We're investing $10 billion into affordable home building initiatives. We're going to remove the goods and services tax on new home purchases under $1 million for new home purchases. And we're going to prioritize the use of Canadian lumber and Canadian steel, Canadian skilled trades to build homes for Canadians.
Candidate Danko, thank you very much. Candidate Beauchemin, I understand you're trying to get involved here. Yep.
I think that the Liberals have had enough time in power to do all the things they said. They sound very nice and good, but they've had their time. So
thank you for your response.
And again, none of those steps actually keep homes from moving into the private market, right? One of the things that the NDP has spoken about and which is critical is making sure that private for-profit corporations, real estate investment trusts, they cannot trade in residential properties. Why? Because unlike commercial properties like Lime Ridge or any of the malls that we have around here, if they trade in private residential properties, that allows them to what? To renovate residents and to essentially jack up the price so that they become less affordable for the rest of the folks who are looking for homes. But if we remove that from the private market, if we ban the ownership of those by publicly held corporations, then we reduce the incentive to continue to take these practices on. And so that is one thing that the NDP is standing for, that none of the other parties are speaking for at this time. So I think the Liberals are failing on that front because there's no way to control the housing prices as those things continue to be built.
Response from Candidate Danko?
Thank you. I'll just share a success story in Hamilton that is a direct result of Liberal investment in affordable housing. When I served as chair of planning committee, I sat in on a meeting with the Hamilton His Home Coalition that involved a political representation from the NDP, from the Conservatives, from the Liberals, and we put our heads together to figure out how we could build new, affordable, and supportive housing in Hamilton. On the Hamilton Mountain, I was just at the groundbreaking for 60 Caledon. This is 261 new affordable housing units in Hamilton. That is a direct result of investment by the federal government through the CMHC funding and also through the Housing Accelerator Fund that was successfully brought to Hamilton by MP Philomena Tassi.
And keep in mind where we are, 261 homes. There are 6,000 people on the Hamilton Community Housing waiting list. So 200 homes fails to make any dent in that. In addition, the Jamesville properties, which are in the north end of Hamilton, still haven't been redone, still haven't been completed. So the councillor is making claims about the success of the Accelerator program, which brought $93 million into Hamilton. But at the end of the day, where are we? We still have over 6,000 people on the waiting list. So 10 years has been too long. I think at this stage, we need to continue to elect MPs, strong NDP MPs, to continue to push these sorts of portfolios forward.
So just want to share a little bit more about the success of the Housing Accelerator program. $93.5 million investment in the city of Hamilton that is now being used through the Housing Secretariat to not only build affordable housing, but to build the form of housing that we need. What we don't need is 400 square foot investor condos. What we need is family-friendly housing, 2-3 bedroom units, and that's where the Housing Accelerator Fund fits in. It's a little bit of a government boost to incentivize developers to build that type of housing. And what we've also seen in the affordable home builders in Hamilton, like Indwell, building passive house level new homes for Hamiltonians that are zero carbon emissions. So I think that is an amazing success story for Hamilton.
Fortunately, the number is still 200, so I don't see much of a success story within Hamilton. Again, 6,000 people still on the waiting list. I think we need more tangible, concrete plans, and plans that aren't going to put homes back into the private market at the end of the day.
We'll give final word to you, candidate Beauchemin, if you wish. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next media question.
Nope, I agree with what Robert said. So.
Thank you very much, candidates. Thank you very much for that. And, of course, a big thank you to Kelly Patello from CHCH News. We'll continue to move on now. Our next question will be coming from CBC Hamilton's very own Sarah Piesker. Sarah, the floor is yours. Please ask your question and let us know who you are directing it to, please.
Hello, candidates. My question is for the Liberal candidate. You are often outspoken on Twitter, once calling YWCA award winners ungrateful, self-righteous toddlers after they criticized police. These comments were found to have violated the city's code of conduct. What did that teach you about how to engage with constituents?
Thank you for the question. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is foundational to our democracy. I believe that the values that we share as Canadians, individual dignity, freedom, and the right to live in peace and security. The individual that filed this code of conduct unfortunately did not seem to share those values. In particular, comments regarding the values of the lives of police officers I found particularly offensive. As a witness to these comments and as an elected official, I felt that I had an obligation to speak out. But further detail into what was actually said and why I felt that I needed to respond wouldn't reflect favorably on this individual. And if anyone wants to actually read the report into what was said and why I felt I needed to speak out, that report is available from the City of Hamilton.
Thank you for that response. We will now open this up to other responses. I understand candidate Enriquez would like to respond.
So this calls to point, I think, a specific issue that has been talked about at many of the doors here, because while my friend candidate Danko has referenced the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, one of the pieces that I found problematic as a human rights lawyer especially is that during a time of homelessness, where we have folks living in encampments, and however you may feel about that, like that's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed. But at a time when Councillor Danko couldn't achieve his ends, he also goes out on Twitter and asks that the Conservative government use the notwithstanding clause to trample the rights of Canadian residents in Hamilton. And so, as a human rights lawyer, that strikes me as far afield of what an elected official should be doing, right? Especially one who's running for the Liberal Party that brought us the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is a problematic approach. It undermines the rule of law. And I believe it is a question that needs to be addressed by Mr. Danko, because here we are engaging with a very conservative approach to the Charter of Rights. And it is something that needs to be addressed because there's this wide gap there between him and his party.
Thank you very much. Candidate Danko, your response to that.
Thank you. Well, I think the NDP candidate and I agree that the notwithstanding clause is a very serious tool that should only be used in very
Then why did you say
respectful situations. However, I think talking about homelessness in Hamilton, homeless encampments in city parks are not a compassionate solution to homelessness. Hamilton is investing nearly $200 million in 2025 on emergency shelter space, supportive and affordable housing, real long-term solutions with the support and care that homeless individuals need. Of course, the federal government, we've already talked about our investments in housing, but we're also investing $6 billion in mental health investments since 2017 and working with our partners at the province to get homeless individuals the mental health and addiction supports that they need.
The question wasn't about homelessness. The question was about what Mr. Danko learned from the experience. And I think what we are seeing is that Mr. Danko sometimes flouts the established norms, including with respect to the Charter, by imploring a Conservative government to use the Charter. I think that runs afoul of the trust that people in this riding would be putting into him as a Liberal candidate. And it is a question that I'm hearing time and time again. So when I'm putting this to residents in the community, I am saying, who is the best candidate for you? Not a question about the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. Who is the best candidate for you? If you think you're getting a Liberal, you may not be getting a Liberal because, again, there are positions that are being taken that do not line up with the Liberal Party, that do not line up with the Charter, that do not line up with the rule of law.
Response?
Well, I'm flattered that the NDP candidate spends so much time on my social media platforms. Just to be clear about my position on the notwithstanding clause and the vote that happened, this was a result of encampment supporters taking the city of Hamilton to court in order to enforce homeless tent encampments in city parks.
So when you can't get what you want, you
what
override
happened
the
was
rights
there was a
of
legal
Canadians.
challenge. My position at the time was it was premature, that we should wait until the conclusion of the legal challenge. And as it turns out, the city of Hamilton was 100% in the right. We are now enforcing our bylaw to eliminate homeless tent encampments in city parks, and they are now gone.
Thank you to all for your comments. To our viewers at home, candidate Beauchemin and I have been looking at each other. She asked not to get involved in that particular topic in case you're wondering at home. We will now continue, as that does conclude our first round of questions from our Hamilton media panel. As mentioned earlier, we've been collecting questions from you, the viewers, being sent into X at Cable14 and by email to election@cable14.com. Let's now give our candidates a chance to respond to some of your questions. The first question comes from Lynn in Ancaster. What is your party's position regarding changing our electoral system to proportional representation? That question is, I'm being told, is being directed to our NDP candidate. Response, and then we will open for discussion.
This is actually one of the issues that I feel most passionately about. There are a slew of others. Let's not undermine the other ones, affordability, all those other pieces. But one of the very reasons why we find ourselves in this situation where people are saying, you know, we need to keep a specific party out, so we need to vote potentially for Mr. Carney, is because we do not have a system of proportional representation. I personally feel that if 7% of the electorate votes for the Green Party should get 7% of the seats in the House. The same with any other party, because the reality is we are backsliding into the challenges that we see with democracy within the U.S. by having by converging towards a two-party system where people are always voting against one another. It reduces the opportunity for dialogue. It reduces the opportunity for negotiation, for consensus building, and what you get is constant elections based on fear. But if we want to change that, if we want to make an impact, we need to change the system so that when people actually vote, their votes are heard, they're counted, and they result in an actual visible change within the House of Commons.
Thank you to the question from Lynn. We will now open it to the rest of the floor, and I see candidate Danko. Yes?
Thank you. The issue of proportional representation comes up from time to time. I think the Ontario NDP would have a very different view of proportional representation, seeing as that they had half the popular vote in the Ontario election, but have double the amount of seats than the Ontario Liberal Party. But I think this is a different election, and the response at the door has been extremely positive, because I think residents understand that this is a pivotal election for Canada. And I think NDP voters are realizing that a vote for the NDP is a vote for Pierre Poilievre in this election. Canadians are looking for a leader who can unite our country, and they see that in Mark Carney.
Getting back to the question, though, the only reason why we are in that situation is because we have a first-past-the-post system. Without that, people would have the freedom to vote for whichever party they wanted, knowing that their votes would be heard. We would have people enfranchised. We would have more participation within the electoral system. And let's be honest, if this was really a concern about keeping a Conservative government out because of the risks that it presents to Canadian nationality, Canadian identity, then what the Liberals could have done is in 2015, when it was promised, they could have changed the electoral system. But they did not. And so the consequence of that is that they now get to campaign on a campaign of fear against Conservatives. That is not the system that we should be built for. We should, again, it should be about consensus building. It should be about building a common goal with all the groups at the table, not just this back and forth.
I think, talking to thousands of Hamilton West-Ancaster voters at the door, this issue hasn't come up once. I think voters are seeing the attempts to cause animosity and division and just want elected leaders to stop bickering and work together for the best interests of Canadians. And the best thing that I've seen in this election, going from house to house, so many houses flying the Canadian flag, it's so encouraging to see Canadians unite around our common vision, our common identity, and our common pride for our country. I'm very optimistic about the future of Canada, but there's no question that this is a pivotal election and we need a liberal government in Ottawa.
Thank you very much for that response, candidate Danko. We'll be moving through. Candidate Beauchemin, would you like to get involved with this?
Yes.
Please.
So the Greens would put in proportional representation. We feel like that would be a very important part of ensuring our democracy stays strong. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much for that response. Final word? We're good? All right, we are going to continue to move on. Again, thank you very much to Lynn from Ancaster. A reminder to all the viewers out there, you want your question to be read, make sure you send it to election@cable14.com, and we'll come back to them if we can later in this debate. Well, Hamilton, that wraps up round one of the question and answer period for this particular debate. You're watching the Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas Riding. Before we continue with a second round of media questions, any candidate not invited to participate in our debate tonight was given the opportunity to record a statement. The Christian Heritage Party candidate Jim Enos declined the opportunity. Here's the recorded statement, though, from the People's Party candidate Eva Sharavi.
Thank you, Cable 14, for this opportunity to address the people of Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas and all of Canadians watching. I'm Eva Sharavi, the People's Party of Canada candidate in this federal election. I'm running because I believe Canadians deserve better. Like many of you, I'm frustrated with politicians who put power before principle. We are a country of promise, but I see that promise being eroded by broken institutions, failed leadership, and a lack of accountability. It's time to turn that around. The People's Party of Canada offers a clear alternative. From day one, we've been honest about immigration. Our leader, Maxime Bernier, has been unfairly attacked for speaking the truth. Unchecked mass immigration strains our society, housing, healthcare, and job opportunities. We propose a moratorium to get things under control, relieve pressure on services, and restore balance for Canadians. We will redirect your tax dollars to solve problems at home, not fund overseas projects or unaccountable NGOs. We will defend provincial autonomy and bring tangible, meaningful rights to Indigenous communities, not hollow gestures. Our military needs rebuilding. Our economy needs strengthening, and our national pride needs restoring. Our vision is clear: smaller government, lower taxes, and elected officials who answer only to you, not lobbyists, not global interests or party bosses. As your MP, I will serve you. No special interests, no backroom deals. With over 240 candidates across Canada, the PPC is a growing movement of Canadians who have had enough. I was excluded from the televised debates in an attempt to silence open discourse, but I'm here because you deserve to hear what the establishment wants to suppress. Our government needs reform, and the parties in power are the reason why. The Liberals ignored your rejection of the carbon tax for years. Now suddenly they're scrapping it just to win votes. The Conservatives dismissed our warnings about mass immigration. Now they're pretending to care because it polls well. These are calculated moves to manipulate your vote. They think Canadians won't notice, but I know you do. For decades, both the Liberals and Conservatives have run this country, and look where we are. A weak military, a fragile economy, a healthcare system on life support, and a generation priced out of housing. They had the power, they had the time, and they failed. And now they're blaming the United States. They're pointing fingers at Trump, using him as a scapegoat, as if Canada's decline is America's fault, not their own. It's a distraction. They don't want you to see that their failures are made in Ottawa, not Washington. Last election, 40% of voters in this riding didn't vote, likely because they felt unheard. But I'm here to tell you, your voice matters. This election is our chance to break the cycle of deceit and build a stronger, united Canada. On April 28th, I ask for your support, but more importantly, I urge you to vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you there to the People's Party candidate Eva Sharavi. And again, you are currently watching the debate for the Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas Riding. And to our viewers at home, if you miss any part of this broadcast or want to see the other federal candidate debates right here on Cable 14, you will find all of those debates on demand at cable14.com. All free for public viewing and sharing, courtesy of our good friends at Cogeco and Rogers, as of 12 a.m. on Saturday, April the 26th. Hamilton, you ready? Let's move on now to round 2 of tonight's media questions. From the Hamilton Spectator, we welcome her back, Fallon Hewitt. The floor is yours. Please direct your question to the candidate you wish.
Thank you so much. My next question is for the Green candidate. So last week, a Mohawk College student was killed by a stray bullet during a shooting on the Hamilton Mountain. Although this wasn't in your riding, it was just a block and a half away. What plan does your party have to combat gun violence, not only in Hamilton, but across Canada?
Fallon, thank you for that question. The floor is yours to candidate Beauchemin.
Firstly, my condolences to the family and friends of Harsimrat Randhawa, the woman killed accidentally in the drive-by shooting on the West Mountain last week. When I was out canvassing, yes, crime is a major issue in this election. At the very least, we need to look at the regulation of guns, especially those coming in from illegally from the U.S. The Greens commit to funding crime prevention measures like anti-poverty programs addressing homelessness and drug addiction, and establishing anti-street gang enforcement. We would prioritize rehabilitation rather than punishment in our prison system, and we would make restorative justice a keystone principle for Indigenous offenders.
Candidate Beauchemin, thank you very much. We will give responses to the other candidates. Candidate Danko, I saw your hand up.
Thank you. And I do want to share my condolences. Such a tragic loss of life. This is only a few blocks from my house. I go by that intersection, as does members of my family and friends, on many times a day, and it is really horrible to learn of that Mohawk College student's death. The fact is that the rise in gun violence, car thefts, drug trafficking, organized crime threatens our shared quality of life as Canadians. A Liberal government will support police and strengthen our justice system. We're committed to strengthen bail provisions to keep violent offenders in jail. We will institute tougher criminal code penalties for drug trafficking and repeat violent crimes and gun crimes. And we will provide more funding to public prosecution services to expedite prosecutions for drug trafficking, fentanyl importation, and organized crime.
Unfortunately, putting people in prison does not prevent these issues.
Thank you for that response. Would you like to respond back to that, candidate Danko?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with the Green candidate that we also need to address the root causes of violent crime. In Hamilton, we have some excellent examples of restorative justice. One that comes to mind is Liberty for Youth, which works with youth at risk and offenders that in order to get them out of a life of crime and into the skilled trades, to provide them a positive way forward to help them help themselves. Also, the Liberal government will be cracking down on illegal firearms and illegal drugs from the United States. We're investing in 1,000 new RCMP officers and 1,000 new Canadian Border Service officers in order to stop the flow of illegal guns coming from the United States that's killing the residents in Hamilton and across Canada.
Candidate Henriquez, the floor is yours if you wish.
Thank you. Yes, so as with the other candidates, I express my sincerest condolences to the family. Obviously, those are the types of actions that we want to extinguish from all of our cities and all of our places where we live. But as with some of the points that the Green Party has raised, the NDP similarly, with respect to this piece about gun violence, the NDP has similarly supported continual registration for firearms. That's not something that has ever gone away. But to the Green Party point as well, the NDP does speak to the conditions that allow for some of these circumstances to arise. And so, when we take away issues of affordability, when we provide homes for people, when we provide access to wraparound support services to accompany affordability issues, housing first, but with all the services that go along with it, society can do and take tremendous steps towards reducing those key elements that lead to these types of behaviors and situations. So the NDP is always committed to providing those types of services and supports to the community to ensure that those types of actions don't continue to fester.
Thank you for that response. Candidate Danko.
Thank you. I think we largely agree on this topic, but one of the ways that we perhaps might disagree a little bit is that we also need to have a strong collaborative relationship with police. I'm very proud as a city councillor that I've built that relationship over the years. I have regular conversations with our mountain crime manager and the chief of police to discuss what the police are actually seeing on the ground. What are they observing? I had the privilege of doing use of force training, and it really opens your eyes to see what Hamilton police deal with on a regular basis. And it's critical for our elected officials to have that dialogue with police in order to understand what it is that they need, the resources that they need to bring criminals to justice.
Thank you very much. I believe we will be moving on. So to Sarah Piesker, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, to Fallon Hewitt. Thank you very much for that question. We'll now be moving on from CHCH's question to Kelly Botello. Kelly, the floor is yours. Please let us know who you're directing your question to.
Hello, my question is for the Liberal Party candidate. Under the Trudeau government, with a push from the NDP, government-funded pharmacare and dental care was expanded to some extent, allowing many Canadians to visit the dentist for free or to get some medications covered. What's your party's take on these programs? Will they remain the same, be expanded, or get axed?
Thank you for the question, Kelly. These are critical initiatives by the Liberal government to help Canadians. We're fortunate that the NDP did vote along with the Liberal government to put these in place. They are at risk if a Conservative government was elected. There's no question that it's a difficult time for Hamilton residents and their families. Along with those cost-saving measures, the Liberal government will bring in a new middle-class tax cut that will save the average household $825 a year. And we are committed to protecting and enhancing and expanding dental care for 6.5 million Canadians who can't afford a dentist or don't have dental insurance. Continue $10 a day daycare for families that saves families thousands of dollars a year, and expanding and enhancing the National Pharmacare program.
Thank you for that response.
What about mental health services?
Absolutely. As the federal government has invested over $6 billion in mental health supports since 2017. It's certainly a priority. The federal government is also responsible for over $200 billion a year in payment transfers for healthcare to the provinces. Of course, as we all know, the provinces are primarily responsible for healthcare, which mental health is healthcare. But we need to hold the provinces accountable for their spending to make sure that when they are receiving that funding from the federal government, they're spending it on the programs that they need to, and we need to protect public health care in Canada to make sure that nobody has to go broke because they have to pay a health bill.
There's an old adage that says that the Liberals campaign from the left, govern from the right, but as my friend Mr. Danko has shown, they take credit from all directions. And so one of the things that I think we need to recenter on this is those programs are in place because the NDP pushed for those. With that balance of power over the last minority government, dental care, as was said, was extended to those 65 and over, 0 to 18. Pharmacare, the bones of a pharmacare program were introduced, as was the child care program, which we've seen over the last 4 years. So one thing to note, the NDP is fully in favor of all of those items. And if we were to get a Liberal minority government or any minority government, we would continue to push for these things because these are the pieces that the NDP represents. We saw it with healthcare many, many years ago. And to date, we are the only OECD country without a full pharmacare program. So the NDP has a strong interest in making these items available for communities, for families, for your neighbors, for your families. And so we will continue to advocate on behalf of these, and we will continue to push a reluctant Liberal government towards these key pieces.
The Greens agree on all of those issues, all of those programs. We would further expand them and add mental health coverage to them.
To our Liberal candidate.
Thank you. Hamilton's life sciences sector is the largest employer in Hamilton. It contributes over $5.7 billion annually to Hamilton's economy and employs over 30,000 people. The Liberal government has provided direct federal funding, several $100 million since 2015, to develop new life sciences industries in Hamilton. Fusion Pharmaceuticals and Omnia Biotech come to mind. But we're also investing in capital infrastructure, $5 billion for upgrading hospitals and long-term care facilities. And just as an example, the Juravinski Hospital, there's a provincial government $1 billion commitment to rebuild Juravinski. But without a federal investment, that project won't move forward. And I'm committed to advocating that if I'm elected as your MP.
NDP candidate, Enriquez.
But let's also not forget, Mr. Danko made the comment about the differences in jurisdictions provincially and federally. Let's not forget that over the course of the last government, what we have seen is a continual sliding in various provinces, including in Ontario, towards a privatized two-tier model. And while it is true that health is a provincial mandate and a provincial jurisdiction, who holds the purse strings? It's the federal government. The federal government, through the Canada Health Act, has the power to legislate requirements, has the power to legislate specific criteria, and to tie funding to those meeting of those specific criteria. So, in a sense, in a very real sense, Liberal governments have stood idly by as some of our provinces have moved towards privatized medicine. The NDP will not allow that. The NDP will continue to fight for our public health care system, and we will continue to push for it, and we will make sure that the Canada Health Act introduces those criteria so that we don't see this movement towards U.S.-style privatized medicine.
To all of our candidates, thank you very much for the response to that particular question from our media panel, particularly Kelly Botello from CHCH. We're now going to be moving on. CBC Hamilton's very own Sarah Piesker joins us now again. Sarah, your question, who you'll be directing it to, please.
I'm going to start with the NDP candidate, but I would love if all the candidates could answer this question. The Conservatives have promised to stop what they are calling a radical woke agenda. They join Conservatives south of the border who have co-opted the word woke from Black activists and are now using it in a negative light. What do you think about the Conservatives' use of the word woke and their promises to end wokeness in places such as universities and the military?
I think it's shameful. Interestingly, if the Conservative candidate were here, I might have asked them, because they have actually been engaged in some very good DEI work representing the legacy of Lincoln Alexander, including through the naming of the TMU Law School, which focuses on folks who maybe haven't had the experience to go to law school as part of a family experience or a lived experience. So I'd be curious to ask them, because that certainly doesn't jive with what I know of their work. But as far as the Conservatives' overall platform, I think it's problematic. I think we, as a people, as a human rights lawyer, I can speak for this, like, we have understood that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Human Rights Code, those underpin our society, right? These pieces of legislation, the rights that go along with them, they're foundational to us. So as a society, I think we reject this concept of woke. I think it's a question of just sharing in our broader empathy and our broader humanity, and I firmly think that we as a society are going to reject that. I doubt any of my other candidates here are going to say something different, but I'm sure they'll just elaborate on it, but I think we need to reject it wholeheartedly.
Let's find out. We'll go to our Liberal candidate.
Thank you. Speaking of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, of course, this was introduced by a Liberal government under Liberal Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. The Charter rights are fundamental values for all Liberals. We believe that when people of all backgrounds have equal access to opportunity and feel respected, valued, and empowered, our communities thrive and workplaces excel. I firmly believe that everyone that is willing to work hard should have the opportunity to succeed. And this also touches on another issue that some Conservatives have raised, and that's the issue of immigration. Canada is a country of immigrants. We have had some recent challenges with immigration, bringing in far too many in a non-strategic way, which has caused some strain. But the Liberal government is committed to reprioritizing our immigration strategy to limit immigration, to be more strategic about the immigration that we need, that immigrants are enhancing our economy, things like family doctors, engineers, skilled trades workers, making sure that they have the training necessary to come to Canada to step into those jobs to enhance our economy.
Candidate Danko, thank you very much. Sarah Piesker did ask for all candidates to respond. Candidate from the Green Party?
I would basically second what my friend from the NDP said. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We will open this up for further discussion if you candidates do wish.
No.
No? We are good. We are going to continue to move on with viewer questions. This one is going to be, actually, you know what? A big thanks first off to Fallon Hewitt from The Spectator, Kelly Botello from CHCH, and of course Sarah Piesker from CBC Hamilton for joining us here. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you throughout the week. We have another viewer question, I'm being told here in my ear, that's come in at election@cable14.com. Matthew joins us from Ancaster, asks, how will you intentionally and purposefully consult with Indigenous communities to ensure that the rights of Indigenous people in all areas are kept at the forefront in any decisions that you make? We will start with the Liberal candidate for his response.
Thank you. The Liberal government is committed to truth and reconciliation. As I said, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is fundamental to our values, and we understand that truth and reconciliation is a long process. It's a difficult discussion, but it's something that we are committed to in a positive way and in good faith with Indigenous communities. At the City of Hamilton, we've initiated the Urban Indigenous Strategy, which has deep consultation with Indigenous communities, not only Indigenous First Nations, but also the urban Indigenous community, which has a significant presence in Hamilton.
Thank you for that response. We will let all candidates respond from the Green Party. If you wish, would you like to respond to that particular question?
Yes. So we have to do better with Indigenous rights. We have to do better with them. It's problematic that we are still dealing with reconciliation when that should not be still going on. We have a lot of work to do. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much for that response. We will move over to the NDP response.
Thank you. Yes, the NDP likewise has a strong commitment to the recommendations brought forward through the Truth and Reconciliation report. Over the past couple of decades, and even in recent years, we have seen decisions that have criticized the government in their failures to properly consult with Indigenous communities. And so what the NDP has consistently said is that when we're talking major infrastructure projects, whether it's not in the case of the NDP, but simply out there, pipelines or energy infrastructure, those are things that need to be spoken with and spoken significantly to great length with Indigenous communities, because this country has a history of overriding many of those Indigenous rights, and it's not time for that anymore. Right? We need to firmly commit to the principles and the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation report, and the NDP wholeheartedly commits to that. I would raise, though, I think that one of the interesting points in the remarks of Councillor Danko, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were one of the only councillors, or one of the councillors, I don't want to say one of the only ones, but who voted against a study to introduce a Indigenous representative on City Council. Is that, perhaps I'm mistaken, but I point you to that.
Thank you. Indigenous peoples are foundational to the history and culture and future of Canada. The Liberal government will continue towards clean, safe drinking water for all Indigenous communities, and not just water systems, but investing in training and maintenance in operations, so there are people in those communities who can maintain and operate these systems. We are committed to expanding access to education, skills training, and mentorship programs for Indigenous youth. And we're working towards Indigenous self-determination for greater control over resources, as has been mentioned. It is the commitment of the Liberal government to strengthen relationships between the federal government and Indigenous governments through consultation and collaboration.
Response from our Green Party?
No.
No? From our NDP party?
So I didn't hear a response on my question about the specific council vote. But having said that, another issue that was brought up was actually the federal government's actions with respect to Indigenous communities. And one of the things that I would point out is, despite a promise in 2015 to completely eliminate all boiled water advisories, the federal government has taken significant steps in that direction, but we still have approximately 40 communities out there on reserve that still are under a boiled water advisory, coming on over 10 years. So the NDP is fully committed to taking those steps for Indigenous communities. So Truth and Reconciliation is, of course, about duty to consult and reviewing on major projects and self-determination of reserves and Indigenous communities, but it's also about providing. And so the NDP firmly commits to those pieces.
Candidate Danko, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I think the NDP candidate and I share those priorities for Indigenous communities, in particular about the need for safe, clean drinking water. In terms of the Indigenous representative on council, that would be a violation of the Municipal Act, so that was never a real consideration that was before council.
To all of our candidates on that particular question, thank you very much. We will be continuing on. Our next question is coming from Charles. Charles asks, do you support a full two-way arms embargo against Israel? Big question. We'll be starting this off. We'll be starting off with the Green candidate.
Simply, yes.
Thank you for your response. Short, sweet, to the point. We'll continue on. We will open this up. The candidate from the NDP.
I don't think there's any question. The NDP has unreservedly supported the call for a two-way arms embargo.
Our Liberal candidate.
The conflict in Israel and Gaza and the broader Middle East is a humanitarian tragedy. The Liberal government has called for a ceasefire and the release of all hostages. We'll continue to work towards a two-state solution, including the creation of a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with the State of Israel. And we're committed to $100 million in humanitarian aid for Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. A Liberal government will continue to focus on both immediate relief efforts and long-term diplomatic solutions.
Thank you very much for that response. And of course, thank you very much to Charles for that question. And of course, a big thank you to our viewers for sending in your questions tonight. And remember, we'll keep viewing throughout the rest of the week. We want more of your questions. We have more debates coming up. Hamilton, it's now time for our open forum. Each candidate will have a minute to raise a topic, 1 minute. Bring up a topic and direct it to a particular candidate here in studio. The candidate who has asked the question will have exactly 1 minute to respond without any interruption. After that, anyone can jump in on that particular topic. We'll be keeping a close eye on the time to ensure that each candidate will have an equal opportunity to ask and answer a question. Please remember, we're holding everyone to 1 minute asking a question and answering a question. Just before tonight's broadcast, Cable 14 randomly drew numbers to determine the order for asking the questions. First up from the NDP, Roberto Henriquez, your question and who should be answering it first?
This is a question for Mr. Danko. Over the course of this campaign, I've heard a lot of people query and raise some of the concerns about American politics, right? Mm-hmm. Because Trump is a big issue. And so we've heard concerns about, defunding of people who might be opposed to Trump, whether that's something that's coming to Canada. We've heard about the politics of simply talking down to your constituents. We've heard a series of issues that remind us of the challenges of American politics. Having said that, I think I have myself and some of the community members have seen you engage in some of these behaviors with some of your own constituents. And one example that comes to mind is a position that you took to potentially defund the Hamilton Legal Aid Clinic, the Tenant Defense Fund funding that they receive in order to provide support for individuals under threat of run eviction.
Enriquez, your time is up. So we will let candidate Danko respond, and you are able to bring that up later on in the open forum portion of it. Candidate Danko, your response to candidate Enriquez's question.
Thank you. As an elected city councillor, it is my duty and obligation to make sure that all the hardworking tax dollars that City Hamilton residents provide to us are spent in the best and most strategic way possible. If there is an organization that is working against the interests of Hamilton residents, I think we have an obligation to hold them accountable for their actions. However, the NDP candidate is exactly right that the single most important issue of this election, no question, is fighting Trump and the tariffs and the economic uncertainty from the United States. Canadians are united with a common purpose to stand up to a hostile U.S. government, to protect our economy, our national sovereignty, and our way of life, because we are not Americans and we will never be the 51st state.
Thank you for that response. We are now into open forum mode.
So my concern with that response is that it may be something that a city councillor would vouch for. So to defund a particular organization that may not align with the interests of a municipality. But as a federal government, as a federal representative, you are often going to provide funding to organizations that may not always align with the particular views of the federal government. And so as a federal government, there has to be some appetite and impetus to keep that politics out of it. Otherwise, you run the risk of, again, backsliding into exactly what we're seeing in the U.S. Defunding universities that don't agree with your viewpoints, defunding organizations that don't agree with your viewpoints. This is from the Conservative playbook, and problematically, we're seeing it from a Liberal candidate in this riding. So that's my point to you on that. I don't see how you can run as a Liberal but advocate for certain pieces that come straight from a Conservative playbook.
Your response?
Well, speaking about the budget and responsibility for public tax dollars, the City of Hamilton has a $2.5 billion annual budget. And since I was elected in 2018, the City of Hamilton has passed a balanced budget each and every year. I've served as budget chair several times. I served as the chair of the procurement subcommittee, and I have valuable hands-on experience of what it takes to work within a balanced public sector budget. Canada's economy is not as strong as it could be. Government spending is way too much, but our new budget framework will promote economic growth while ensuring fiscal responsibility. And we've seen a priority from Prime Minister Mark Carney, a commitment to make Canada the strongest economy in the G7.
Response from our Green Party. Would you like to get involved?
No.
We're good there. Our NDP candidate.
I simply think to the audience, I think it raises a legitimate question about the candidates and what they stand for. And so I'll let you decide, obviously.
Thank you very much for that. We will continue on now. Your question and who should be answering it first. We will be now going to Georgia Beauchemin. Your question, please, who you are directing it to.
So my question is to Congress Dinko. Yeah, sorry. As the councillor for Hamilton's Ward 8, Mr. Dinko has voted with a minority of 7 councillors to cut all funding for Hamilton's Biodiversity Action Plan. Climate change and the alarming decline in the variety of life on Earth, which we can see in our own Ancaster Creek and Coots Paradise, are a serious problem. The Liberal Party has scuttled carbon pricing under pressure from the Conservatives. The Liberals are also open to building new pipelines. How can residents of Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas trust Councillor Dinko with the environment?
Thank you for that question. Candidate Dinko, your response.
Thank you for the question. Just to be clear, the Biodiversity Action Plan, that was a council-referred item in the 2025 budget. That was an enhancement, not the program in itself. The program in itself is still moving forward. I have a very good working relation with the Hamilton Naturalist Club. They do amazing work throughout Hamilton. And I think as a municipal councillor, I've taken a leadership role on environmental issues. Hamilton is a bee-friendly city. I was front and center on debates to have a firm urban boundary. I wrote the motions to protect the Greenbelt from development. I've planted thousands of trees throughout my ward as a city councillor. And I'm very proud of my record as an environmental steward and supporting environmental initiatives throughout Hamilton. And I'll continue to do that if I'm elected as your MP.
We will continue on now. Anyone like to respond to that? No? We are good then. Okay, we are going to... Would anyone like to ask further questions regarding that particular topic? No? Okay, we will continue on then. Our final question will be coming from the Liberal candidate, Mr. John Paul Danko. Councillor Danko, please direct your question to the candidate you wish to answer.
Thank you. This is a question for both the Green candidate and the NDP candidate. Do either of you know if the Conservative candidate actually exists? She's done no media interviews, no press statements, no public appearances. She's not here today. The only indication that I have that she's actually real is signs and some documents with her photo on it. But as a serious question, residents have no idea who she is, what she stands for, or anything about her. So why would people vote for someone who effectively is just a name on the ballot?
Do you have that question to any particular candidate?
Who would ever like to go ahead?
You have a point there. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know what if the Conservative candidate is actually not a paper candidate. Maybe she isn't, maybe she is, but we don't know.
Thank you for that response.
Absolutely. And I mean, I said it off the top, right? These sorts of debates are integral to community participation, to community engagement in the democratic process. And so hopefully the viewers who are potentially watching this think to themselves, does that candidate care enough to show up for my vote? That they can't respond to specific questions that are asked of them on specific policies. And I think that that's a problem. And I think that it was enabled in part during the provincial election with the Conservative Party there. And it's the same strategy. And look, I think that we need to start holding these types of elected officials or people who want to run for office accountable. And we shouldn't be lending our votes or giving our votes to people who can't bother to show up. So I agree with both my friends on the stage right now. It's unacceptable, and I trust that the residents of Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas who are politically engaged will hold them accountable.
Any other additional comments? Okay.
Completely agree.
We all agree. Okay. Nice to see politicians all agreeing. That's good stuff. We still do have a few minutes, folks who are watching online and at home remaining. We are bringing back some of our media. So let's start with Sarah Piesker one more time from CBC Hamilton. Sarah, please ask your question and let us know who you're directing it to. They'll have an opportunity to respond, and then we will open it up to the rest of the candidates.
Sure. I will start with the Green Party candidate this time. All of your parties, all three of the parties here and the Conservatives as well, are promising various types of tax cuts. How would you manage tax cuts while ensuring that services that support our communities still continue to function? What services would you cut?
Thank you very much for that question from CBC Hamilton, Sarah Piesker. Our candidate from the Green Party, the floor is yours.
Trying to
take your time.
So, yes, we would not cut any programs. Where the tax increase would come from is the corporate tax rate, which should be up there much higher than what it is now. We would put it up to 21%. And we would get a lot of money from there. So, and we would eliminate personal income tax for those earning under $40,000 a year, and decreasing taxes for those earning under $100,000 a year. So that would be good for affordability issues as well.
Thank you very much for that response. It is open to the floor now. You see Liberal candidate Danko wants to get involved.
Thank you. I think the question of how will your party pay for your platform is an excellent question. I think it's fundamental to determine your vote. I'll note that the Liberal Party does have a fully costed platform, but the Conservative Party conveniently does not. The Conservative estimate of what they would have to cut is about $140 billion of services that Canadians rely on in order to achieve the promises in the Conservative election platform. In contrast, the Liberal government will balance the operating budget within 3 years by capping the size of federal public service and strategic spending and looking for efficiencies within our government. And we're also going to separate out the operating and capital budgets so that capital spending will focus on infrastructure and housing, defense and technology, and clean energy. And we believe that will catalyze $500 billion in new investment within the next 5 years to kickstart the Canadian private sector and our Canadian economy.
Thank you for that response to our NDP candidate, if he so wishes.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what the Liberals did when they came in to form government with a change to Carney. What they did was they cut capital gains taxes. So that was a move that was to help the wealthy. And instead of providing supports for workers, as the NDP had requested, they just moved forward with those cuts. As for the NDP would propose to make no cuts, and in fact has spoken about improving and increasing the services available through healthcare, the dental care program. And they do it by ensuring that taxes are paid for by the wealthiest in our society, right? A luxury tax on those making over $10 million, reintroducing capital gains taxes, because at the end of the day, the Liberal Party says, well, we need to spur innovation and we need to keep businesses in Canada. I would put to you that if any of those, if at this time, when we're consistently fighting against Trump, tariffs and taxes, if there are companies that are going to be leaving Canada, I would say that that is unpatriotic, and I would say that Canadians will punish them for that, because at this time, we need to stick together, and in sticking together, we need to provide for one another, and that's exactly what the NDP is proposing to fund its programs
Thank
and
you
its
very
expansion.
much for that, Roberto. We will move on to candidate Danko for final word, as we have Fallon Hewitt from The Spectator waiting in the wings for the next question. Candidate Danko.
Thank you. As a private business leader, economist, and a very accomplished leader, Prime Minister Mark Carney has made the economy the focus of his platform and the focus of the Liberal platform. The Liberal government will be making investments in our economy, and in Hamilton, that leads to direct investment in the city of Hamilton and some of the institutions and partners that we have here. In particular, investments in research and development, post-secondary education and training, hundreds of millions of dollars in transit, and I'm very optimistic about the future of Hamilton. Just as an example, some of the investment in Hamilton, the Slate lands, the former Stelco lands, is projected to be 27,000 new jobs for Hamilton with a partnership with the federal government. That is more economic development than steelmaking at its peak.
Thank you very much for that response, and very big thank you for our media for that particular question. Next question coming from the Hamilton Spectators, Fallon Hewitt.
So I'm going to put this question to the Liberal candidate. So this is a riding where a lot of young people and families live, students, and we regularly hear concerns about affordability, whether that be rent or groceries specifically. So what work have you done to keep the price of essentials like groceries down, and what specific policies will you help to advocate for?
Thank you for the question. There's no question affordability is a key issue for Hamilton families, seniors on a fixed income. My own kids are 16 and 18, and when I look at their future, I have never been more concerned than I am now what their future looks like. I am running to make sure that young families have the opportunity to actually be able to afford a home, to afford the lifestyle that they want, and to be able to stay in Hamilton to live in this community. We have so many students in this riding. We have a McMaster University, Mohawk College, Redeemer. I want all of those students to be able to stay in Hamilton because they have the economic opportunity, the jobs here, to keep them in Hamilton so that we can leverage that towards building out Hamilton's economy. As I said, I'm very proud of the work that we've done in Hamilton, the investments that we have, and we are working towards making sure that Hamilton is an economic center not only for the Golden Horseshoe, but for all of Canada.
Candidate Danko, thank you very much for that. The candidate from the Green Party, would you like to have a quick response to that?
Yes, but I'm trying to find the page.
We'll let you find the page. We'll move on over to the candidate from the NDP party.
As far as affordability, and because the question was posed to Mr. Danko, I will say, as one of the lawyers who previously worked and was funded through the Tenant Defense Fund in support of folks who were experiencing rent evictions, my experience with Mr. Danko, as far as I can see it, was an attempt to defund that particular fund, which potentially allows for rent evictions to take place and results in less affordable homes within Hamilton. But as far as the NDP, right, the NDP is continuously advocating for the building of affordable homes. They're continuously advocating for the things that have helped families over the course of the last 4 years. My own family benefited from a daycare program, which took a mortgage payment off of our home, off of our household income, and essentially made it more affordable and viable for both of our parents, or our daughter's parents, to go to school, to continue working. We've seen seniors who have benefited from the dental care program. These are things that the NDP continuously advocates for and will continue to advocate for.
Thank you very much for that. We do have to continue due to time restraints. We will be giving the final word to that particular question to our Green Party candidate, Georgia Beauchemin.
So what we would do on affordability, well, I answered that in the last question partially. So we would also put in place a universal basic income. to help people with those extra costs that you cannot pay for on your incomes. We would also put in place free post-secondary education for low-income people. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that response to our media question, and we will be continuing on now, folks, watching at home, with our closing statements from our candidates right here in studio. We will be going in an opposite order from how we opened to tonight's debate. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for their closing statement. We'll be starting with the Green Party's Georgia Beauchemin. You have 1 minute.
You've heard a lot from me, from my fellow candidates and me, about our party priorities and what we'd like to accomplish in Parliament if given the chance. Now, it is your turn to decide who you want to represent you in Ottawa. Voice is what this campaign has been all about. A vote for either a Liberal or a Conservative at this point sets us up for an eventual US-like two-party system, which no one wants, and which denies smaller opposition parties like the Greens and the NDP a voice. When you step into the voting booth with your ballot and your pencil on Monday, choose the candidate who will focus on you.
Thank you for that response from the Green Party. Your closing statement. Now to the NDP, your closing statement.
Thank you for tuning in tonight, to the viewers watching on Cable 14. I want to speak to specifically the strategic voters who are out there who are debating which way they want to vote. And I want to remind you of what the NDP was able to accomplish with 25 MPs thereabouts in the House of Commons. They helped push the Liberal government towards dental care, towards a pharmacare program or the inception of one, and towards a functional childcare program that still has a ways to go, but it's there. And so that was done with the strength of NDP MPs. In this riding, you have options. But I would say to you that the only progressive option, in light of some of the challenges that we've heard with respect to Mr. Danko, is an NDP elected official. Just like you did for the provincial, you can vote a strong NDP candidate who will continue to vouch for community, for family, for all of your neighbors, and for the people that you care about. So I hope you'll think about that.
Final word, closing statement goes to the Liberal candidate, John Paul Danko.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who's been engaged in this important election. I'm John Paul Danko, your Liberal candidate for Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. As a structural engineer and proud city councillor since 2018, I've spent my career building strong foundations, and now I want to help build a stronger Canada. We face serious challenges: economic uncertainty driven by an unprecedented U.S. government, rising costs of living, and growing division. In these times, we need capable, positive leadership. Mark Carney is that leader. I've spoken to thousands of you, and I know that we share the same values: unity, resilience, and a deep commitment to Canada. This is a close election. In the last U.S. presidential elections, the polls did not predict the winner, so every vote is important. On Election Day, I ask for your support to help form a new Liberal government and keep Canada strong.
To our candidates and to our media, thank you very much for your time tonight. Hamilton, that's all the time we have for our Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas debate. All the information you need for voting is available online at elections.ca. Please do your part. Get out and vote in the federal election on April 28th. Hamilton, thank you. Good night.